I don't know either. This is yet another video I won't be surprised gets no clicks because it doesn't get more obscure than this. If you're somewhat into the online indie horror scene, then you've probably heard the name Scott Cawthon. He's the mastermind behind the Five Nights at Freddy's series, and if you're even slightly aware of Let's Plays and game theory, then you definitely know what that is. Took the internet by storm in the mid-2010s, got so popular that it not only has one, but two movies that were surprisingly big hits, sparked the whole mascot horror genre too, which in hindsight was kind of a negative, but that's a whole nother video topic. The point is that Mr. Cawthon is a true indie success story, created a game damn near by himself that went on to become a multi-million-dollar franchise. However, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows because there was definitely a lot of trial and error before reaching that point, and in this video, we're covering one of those trials. This is the Desolate Hope, a platformer turned RPG made by Scott Cawthon 2 years prior to Five Nights, and boy is this a strange one. I can see why this game never caught on because it feels truly alien in more ways than one. But before we get any deeper, let me give you all the premise of this joint. So this is a space station called Lune Infinis. Who knows what planet this is? All you need to know is that it is far away from any human contact. On this space station, we play as this little robot named Coffee, who's on a mission to eradicate viruses that are affecting these 4 robots running vital simulations around the station. These 4 robots are called derelicts, and they've been running these simulations for so long that they've essentially become immobile. Why are they running these simulations? Well, they've all been tasked by the creators to see if the planet they're on is capable of human development. However, since each robot was developed by a different department, they all got radically different ideas on how that development would play out. However, all of this isn't that important to Coffee's journey here. All this robot cares about is getting rid of any anomalies in these simulations, and to do this, he's enlisted this program to control his body and hack into these simulations. You could kind of think of this program as a surrogate for the player because just like us, it doesn't know what the fuck is going on and it's just going along with whatever Coffee says. So by day, we're hacking into these robot systems, killing viruses, and by night, we're roaming the planet gathering resources to level up the derelicts. And the reason the latter is important is because Coffee isn't the one actually fighting the viruses. It's the simulated versions of the 4 derelicts. So yeah, right off the bat, how this game looks is insane. This motherfucker was destined to make mechanical horror because these designs are creepy as hell, man. I remember first launching this game and stepping into this guy's room and thinking I was already getting into a boss fight. I'm pretty sure some of these robots are supposed to feel a little hostile, but even the friendly robots look a bit off-putting. So many of the enemies and NPCs don't even look like they belong in the simulations that they're a part of. They got this 90s style plasticky pre-rendered look that clashes with these very busy backgrounds. Makes so many of the designs feel even more uncanny. And speaking of the backgrounds, what's even going on there? This is like the backgrounds of that game Riven but on shrooms. You got a giant Cybertron Freddy in the back of the Malways, goddamn Vishnu and Miradmore, and all of these temples and time fixtures in the back of Beta Grind. Some real surreal shit here. There's only 4 levels here, but they all leave an everlasting impression with how provocative they are. And that's not even getting into the dark industrial vibes of Lune Infinis. Nothing but darkness, computer screens, and dying machinery. Yeah, I feel a lot of desolation, but not a lot of hope. The brooding music furthers that feeling. The simulations appropriately have more upbeat tracks, and this aspect of the game was really impressive to me because I already knew that Mr. Cawthon had an interesting art style, but I didn't know that he was a solid composer. This is a surprisingly dope soundtrack, a nice balance of punchy and moody electronic instrumentals that really sell each world's bizarre aesthetic. The RPG battle sequence is where you can really tell that this is an indie project though, because a user interface like this would never pass through multiple professionals. Way too much information getting shown to you at once, and in really weird spots too. Like the description of each moves being this small ass shitty font in the middle of the screen, these really important store moves being these tiny icons at the top right, and then you have all of these battle effects overlapping with each other. It's a clusterfuck and overwhelming to the senses. You do get used to it, but I mean, this game doesn't have a seizure warning upon startup for nothing. Oh yeah, never press escape, that immediately exits the game. But yeah, getting into the gameplay here, the Desolate Hope is a weird mesh of genres. We got a day and night cycle with about 15 days to do what we need to do. During the day, it's about going into each of the simulations and trying to find the virus. You're given clues on where it is by coffee, and during these parts, you'll find yourself platforming throughout the level trying to find the joint. On the way, there's a bunch of fodder enemies to shoot down, vendors to buy stuff from, and these simulations to hack into to get more conditional moves for the RPG battles. Yeah, it's a simulation within a simulation, but these are mostly optional. Finding the virus gets you into these RPG battles with them, and you gotta do these about 4 times in each of the simulations to wipe them out. 3 out of 4 of them are the same guys though, just buffed up with more health and strength. At night is where you traverse the surface of the moon for trinkets that the derelicts will like. Each time you find one to give it to them, they level up and get stronger. So yeah, the general loop is exploration and battles during the day and boosting up your team by night. You would assume that with the time limit, there's a real tension into getting all of these viruses in a timely manner, but not really. When you get down to like day 5, the game will frequently hand you some extra days with some items that you can find on the surface. And even if you do manage to run out of time, it's just defeating the viruses again. Surprisingly, none of your other progress is lost. Makes me wonder why this condition was added, because it's not like there's any consequence of failure elsewhere. Dying in these simulations just boots you out of them and you can go right back in. Same with the RPG battles. Now, you quickly learn that with the simulations, it's essentially just one giant fetch quest because there's not much going on with the actual platforming here. Very bare bones movement and level design here. Coffee can jump, shoot, and glide, and that's it. But I guess you wouldn't need much more than that, since almost all of the enemies are stationary obstacles that occasionally shoot at you. There's some traps and pits, but not enough to where there's any meaningful challenge here. I will say that these 4 simulations do feel distinct from each other. Beta Grid is very maze-like and claustrophobic. Mirrored More is the water level with a lot of descending. The Mal Waste is expansive with a whole underground part to it, but there's really no tension or challenge in actually playing through these areas. So after a while, going back into these things does get kind of boring. The art is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here, and you don't even get to appreciate that when you go inside these other sims. Gathering chips and new moves doesn't seem all that important until you get into these RPG battles. It's here where things do get a bit exciting. This is where actual challenge reveals itself. We have an active time battle system here where even though you're clicking through menus to select your moves, the boss can still hit your team while doing it. Both you and the boss have this charge meter where when it's filled, you actually have a turn. The difference is that with the boss, if this meter becomes full, that's when they can unleash their special moves, which can really fuck up your party. One-shot party wipes, all of these debuffs like health drain and sleep, screen glitching effects that make it hard to select your moves. A lot of annoying shit now that I think about it. On your end, each of the derelicts have a specific role in the party. Malins has a bunch of moves that heal and buff your party. Myrad has these storing abilities where you stack a bunch of moves over time for later use. Biobeta has a bunch of debuffs. And Alphys has the most offensive abilities along with the most important defensive ability in Proto Wall. And yeah, visually, I already went over how chaotic a lot of these sequences are, but just playing through this shit feels like you're going through a schizophrenic sugar rush. Some moves spawn whole little mini games in the top left here that you have to do. There's a lot to manage here, and you have to be fast as hell. For most of these guys, it's about debuffing the shit out of them, trying to slow their charge, getting as many stores ready, and getting ready to Proto Wall whenever they're about to do a big attack. And sometimes that doesn't even work. You can easily get stuck in a loop of trying to kill your party from non-stop debuffs and devastating attacks, and all of this just gets more and more difficult with each encounter. Yeah, the combat here definitely keeps your attention. Feels like it was designed for people with ADHD. There is a certain thrill in trying to navigate all this shit, but my god, so many of these viruses are way too overtuned. I had to get a couple of these 1000 HP ups just for a chance to survive some of these encounters. And even then, the final boss Pulsar was serving my ass on a dinner plate.
What am I gonna do about that? Like, what is that, nigga?
I'm sure that there's some way to beat this game without resorting to these, but I don't got the patience. It was still a major pain in the ass just to get these though. I'm talking 2 hours of grinding in the rabbit simulations. 2 hours of walking around in the same rooms, killing the same enemies. Yeah, it's the moments like these where this game becomes boring as hell, but it's not just this. I wish there was a way to speed up the night cycles, because after a while, gathering items on the surface stops mattering all too much, even with the Space Invader bonus game. Still, all of these different mechanics and modes do create something unique, if a bit unpolished. So you might have noticed that in some of these clips, there's this glitchy green effect going on in these simulations, and this is something that only gets worse the more viruses you kill. But how can that be? Shouldn't getting rid of these things help the derelicts? Well, it turns out that we've been lied to the whole time by Coffee. We aren't restoring these simulations, we're destroying them. And the viruses we've been fighting have been antiviruses trying to stop us, the actual virus, from stealing data. What's crazy is that there's been clues hinting at this the whole time. The simulations getting more glitched out as you progress, the simulation status bars depleting, the derelicts themselves telling you that what you're doing isn't helping, and then there's the fifth derelict, Amos, who's already dead when the game starts. Who's to say that his demise wasn't because Coffee already drained his simulation? There is a reason he tells you to stay away. The reason for Coffee's heel turn is due to this fetus that was sent up a while ago. He desires to create a simulation to raise it, and the only way to do that is to siphon data from the other simulations. So yeah, we've been the antagonist the whole time, and it's a really well done plot twist. Like I said, all the pieces were there from the beginning where you feel that something isn't right, but it isn't obvious to what isn't right. And this game does pose an interesting question on what gives a life purpose, and are some people's existence more purposeful than others? It's implied that humanity is either long gone or has simply forgotten about all the robots on Loot Infinite. So are these robots just keeping these simulations alive for no reason? Probably, but it does give their existence purpose. Apparently to Coffee though, that purpose is meaningless compared to this embryo that he finds hope in. He's willing to snuff out their lives for a burgeoning one. And considering the mostly happy ending with the two kids enjoying a fruitful childhood, it seems that the game is on the side of Coffee here. Now, a part of me wants to believe that the message here is that you can find hope in a hopeless situation, but considering Coffee's actions here, and Scott Cawthon himself being a hardcore Christian Republican, I can't help but feel like this is pro-life propaganda on his part. I don't know if that was actually its intention or not, but there's definitely some themes here that convey that message. I may not be on board with all that, but I can appreciate that the narrative here does have a point it's trying to make. So yeah, that's the Desolate Hope, a very strange early game by an interesting developer. pretty unique in a lot of ways. The art is striking, the atmosphere is strong, the gameplay is something else, and there's surprisingly a lot you can draw from the story. It's unpolished as hell and does get a bit boring at parts, but it is a free game by one dude, so it's not like there's any risk in giving it a try. Anyway, that's all I gotta say about this. If you like this vid, I got plenty of more like it on the channel, so peace out and until next time.